Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High God, whose true name is Yahweh, and I want to do so in the name of His beloved Son, whose name is Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus Christ. I would also like to give much honor and salutation to the elect elders and leaders who have pushed this gospel in sincerity and in truth. And I also want to bid Shalom to the rest of the sincere Akim and Aqua, walking after the truth, right? And not to prolong the video. Hopefully this will be quick, but um I'll just be addressing a question I received regarding the last video that I did a few days ago, which was titled and it's on the channel obviously, but it was titled are the sons of Japheth the Gentiles, regarding Genesis 10. And the question was, if Gentile just means nation or people, then how do we distinguish Israel from other nations? Roughly paraphrasing the question. And so just to speak to this and answer this cleanly, um, I'll say that you would distinguish the people being talked about by context and circumstances of the passage. All right, so that's a clear answer to distinguish who the Gentiles are in each text you're reading. But also going a step further, you would also look at the word that's utilized, uh, within the text, as well as the circumstances behind the passage itself. You would look at the original language to see what that word indicates. For instance, if we're reading in the Old Testament, we would look at the Hebrew. Reading the New Testament, so-called, where we would look at the Greek. And we can jump into these things, but real quick, I'll give a quick example, like I went into in the initial video. We can go to Judges 4, and so we'll just point this out. So this is Judges 4:1. It says, "And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of Yahweh when Ehud was dead, and Yahweh sold them into the land of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, which dwelt in Harosheth of the Gentiles." All right, so this is a clear indication that the subject matter is the children of Israel were sold to a particular people. These particular people were connected and associated with King Jabin of Canaan. So these would be the Canaanites. And this gives us a huge clue, because it says, which dwelt in Harosheth of the Gentiles. And like I did in the last video, I went into what Harosheth is. When we go into that, that's in the land of Canaan. Even when you look right there, a city in the north of the land of Canaan, on the west coast of the lake Merom. So, right here, just by context, we see that Harosheth of the Gentiles is referring to, a land of, that belongs to Canaanites, and those Gentiles, or those peoples, or that nation, is referring to the Canaanites. So that one is plain. So we see right here, according to context, in the circumstance regarding the text that we're reading, we see that the we were able to understand who the Gentiles are. All right, so let's let's go to another example. All right, let's look here. Let's go to the book of John, chapter 7. Let's show Israelites being referred to as the English word Gentile. So this is the book of John, chapter 7, and verse 35. It says, Then said the Jews among themselves, Whither will he go, that we shall not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles, and teach the Gentiles? So right here, the Jews are referring to Yahushua and are asking where he's gonna go. And since he mentioned that he was going to somewhere where nobody could go, like you read that in the earlier chapters or earlier verses, um, you know they they wondered, or they wonder if he was gonna go to the dispersed amongst the Gentiles and teach them. But right here, um, it shows that they refer to those dispersed as Gentiles. All right, so let's look at this particular word for Gentiles. Um, let's look at this particular word for Gentiles, and it's going to be the word Hellene. All right, it's the Greek word Hellene. So let's take a listen.
Strong's G 1672, Hellene, Hellene.
All right, so it's the Greek word Hellene, and and this obviously refers to, one that submits to a Greek lifestyle. You can read that in the biblical usage. A Greek either by nationality, whether a native of the mainland or of the Greek islands or colonies. In a wider sense, and, the name embraces all nations, not Jews, that made the language, is the point. Let me highlight this, that made the language, customs, and learning of the Greeks their own. The primary reference kind of the primary reference um, is to a difference of religion and worship. So right here we see even within the biblical usage and even as well as the definition, it would allude to this as well. And once you go within here, it'll show you the applications of this word. But um, this word is clearly referring to um, just anybody that submits to a Greek lifestyle. So they would be called a Hellene, which will be translated to either the word Greek or the word Gentile. So that's one way we see the word Gentile being used, and by the context, we're able to decipher who's being referred to. Again, you look at John 7 and 35, um, they mention the dispersed. We know that the dispersed are the scattered Israelites. Let's check this out. And if we know he's going to the dispersed, the diaspora, look, and it even says it within the usage. You don't even have to, go that deep. So, again, this is another example of, you know, just context and the circumstance behind the passage, explaining, who's who. So the Gentiles here, um, you know, the, the where it says teach the Gentiles, those would be the Israelites that they're referring to. But again, like I mentioned a little bit before, or at least alluded to it, we have, two different Greek words that are mainly utilized for the word Gentiles. Um, of course, we have Hellene, but we also have ethnos, which is used, and it typically you'll typically see it translated as either nations or Gentiles. So this would be a closer equivalent to Goyim in the Hebrew, or Goyim. And I think maybe it could be referred or translated as multitudes, I believe. But y'all can fact check that if y'all would like. But it's typically used as nations and Gentiles. That's how it's translated as. So let's look. Let's look here. This is an example um, of this word ethnos, which is used as either Gentile or nation. Let's show this being referring to, you know, every nation, right? Meaning every country under heaven. Let's go to Acts 10 and 34. It says, and this is Peter after his encounter with Cornelius. It says, then Peter opened his mouth and said, of a truth, I perceive that God is no respecter of persons, but in every nation he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. So, real quick, I'm going to take time to pause to look at this word nation. It's going to be the Greek word ethnos. Greek word ethnos. Like similar to the word goyim or gawayim. It just means people or a nation. Now, again, let's read verse 35. It says, but in every nation he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. So Peter, after he had his encounter with Cornelius, he's speaking, and basically he's referring to the children of Israel that are scattered abroad. They're able to be reconciled back to the Most High, right? By Yahweh Shai, dying for us. And we're scattered in every nation, right? Every country we were at. And it's real quick. I'll show an example of that. Let's go to Acts 2. Let's go to the book of Acts, chapter 2, and verse 5. It says, and there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men, out of every nation under heaven. So they were Jews, meaning practicing Israelites. They practiced the faith of their fathers and kept the law, statutes, and commandments. And it says they were out of every nation. So let's look at this word. Again, it's the Greek word ethnos. So this word is referring to every single nation under heaven. So again, we see a place where nations or Gentiles, and we're going to get to the word Gentile in a minute, being used as ethnos. But let's get back to this Acts 10. So here it is. It says, verse 35. It says, but in every nation he that feareth him, but in every nation he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. All right, verse 36. The word which God sent unto the children of Israel, preaching peace by Yahweh Shai, the anointed. He is Lord of all. So we see right here it says every nation, but it's but in verse 36 it shows who this is directed to. This is directed to Israelites in every nation. So this is another example of the text, the circumstances and context, given the full understanding of what um what nation or every nation or Gentiles, things of that sort, is showing, you know, who's who, so to speak. So so let's go to another example. Um let's go to the apocrypha. Salakia. I want to go to editions of Esther, chapter 1, and um, we can start at verse 9. It says, "And my nation is this Israel, which cried to God, and were saved, for the Lord hath saved his people, and the Lord hath delivered us from all those evils, and God hath wrought signs and great wonders, which have not been done among the Gentiles." All right, so this is clearly showing that the nation, and that would be, a usage of the word ethnos, and we see that this nation is referring to Israel, and it said, "which cried to God and were saved," and then it goes on to say, um, that these signs and wonders weren't done among the Gentiles. Now, that's referring to the nations. That would be the word ethnos. So we see an example of, not only the word ethnos being used as nations, but we see it used as ethnos. Now, verse 10, this is the point. It says, "Therefore hath he made two lots, one for the people of God, and another for all the Gentiles." Now, right here, we know based on verse 9 that the nation of Israel are the people of God. And when we continue to read in verse 10, it says, "Another for all the Gentiles." Those are all the nations outside of Israel. So we see, based on context and circumstance, that um, Gentiles, even when talking about peoples, nations, and it'll say all, it can refer to all of the nations outside of Israel. So that's why, even when you look in, let me see if I can find a place, because I think you may be able to see it here um, in the Hebrew when you look at Gentiles, because I think sometime it'll say um, all nations, not Israel, I think. And I believe it says that in the Greek as well for ethnos. But you can see here, um, look, it says uh, uh, under that usage, it says usually a non-Hebrew people, which is right. That's just showing that, um, you know, though Gentiles or Gentile just means a nation or a people, depending on usage and context and circumstances behind the passage, it can refer to all the nations outside of Israel. And what I'll do, I'll end up uh I'll end up dropping it in the description, most high willing. Um, I'll show you guys the source you can use, or you can. Yeah, and I'll most high willing, I'll put the source in the description below. But you know what I'll do? We'll go to another example in the New Testament just to show um Gentiles referring to nations outside of us, and the Greek word being utilized is ethnos. Let's go to Luke chapter 21 and verse 23. It says, um, "But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations." That's the Greek word ethnos. You can see it right here. "And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled." So again, um, obviously in verse 23, it makes mention, Yahushua is clearly speaking to Israelites. He says, "Wrath upon this people." He's speaking to Israelites, and this is prophesying the events of uh, 70 A.D., the destruction of the temple, and you can look that up. That's the Roman Jewish Wars. You can look that up and find that information. Um, but this particular word right here, you go into all nations. That's dealing with the word ethnos. Okay, see the word ethnos for nations, and then also the Gentiles. That's ethnos again, an inflection of it. Again, ethnos at the end. So this is again showing another example of the Israelites and the Gentiles being in juxtaposition, but this is shown by context, because there are some places like I showed earlier where Israelites can be, where ethnos can be referring to, Israelites, right? So that's, so you have to pay attention to context and the circumstances regarding the passage. I'll show one more. Let's go to the book of Acts, chapter 7, verse 45. It says, let's start at 44. It says, "Our fathers had the tabernacle of witness in the wilderness, as he had appointed, speaking unto Moses, that he should make it according to the fashion that he had seen." And this is Stephen speaking. Verse 45, it says, "Which also our fathers that came after brought in with Jesus," it says Jesus, but it should be Joshua, "into the possession of the Gentiles, whom God drave out before the face of our fathers unto the days of David." So this is obviously referring to all the nations outside of Israel, because this is talking about, when Joshua drove out, through the Spirit and power of the Most High, all of the nations, and you can read about that in the book of Joshua, when we establish ourselves in the nation, in the land of Israel, um, or in our land, right? And we can look at this word. Um, this word again is Gentiles. Um, in the Greek is an inflection of ethnos. So this is this is something that's repeatedly shown throughout the scriptures. Um, but again, just to make it simple and plain, the way you are able to distinguish um, who the Gentiles are in each circumstance, or each passage, is by observing the circumstance in the background of the passage you're reading. So just look at, who's speaking, the subject matter, and you'll be able to see, who the Gentiles are if it utilizes um, the word Gentile. It may utilize it as a stranger, as a people or a nation. You'll be able to find this out by just simply looking um, at context and the circumstance of the passage. But with that, you know, Lord willing, everyone was edified that watches this and sees this. Um, Hopefully the question was answered. And up until next time, I'll say shalom.
Just